Black horror is taking charge of our minds today on Monday Madness. Guillermo del Toro fancies doing only animation in a few years' time. We have a new trailer for Pixar's Elio, as well as Jeannine's non-spoiler review of The Flash, and a very special review of The Blackening, leading in to today's Let's Talk, all about celebrating the best of the history of black horror. It's always a fun time, it always is. On Monday Madness, welcome to it. That was new, wasn't that? Welcome to it. What am I talking about? Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Monday Madness with Dracula and Blackula, as we are today, because that just worked. I thought that worked.
Yes.
Even though I don't like to think I'm anywhere near as horribly offensive as Dracula in Blackula is. A deeply unpleasant depiction of Dracula. Every other Dracula's really nice, but
this one's racist and wants slavery to continue.
He does. We like most Draculas. We don't like Dracula.
That Dracula. Yeah.
He's not a nice person at all. But we are excited, as we always are, Jeannine, to be back with Monday Madness, because we do have a nice few things to talk about. We've got a couple of reviews from you, because I haven't seen either of these movies, one of which was a movie I really did want to see and do want to see, but isn't out yet in Britain. And one of the movies we spoke enough about over the last couple of weeks as to what we all think about this one. But we're giving it some time today, because you're going to give a little bit of a review on that fairly major movie as it is.
Yes.
It has to be said. On today's show as well, should we just start right on in and ask the question? So, Jeannine.
We have a few things up today, Morgan. Starting with what you mentioned up top with Guillermo del Toro wanting to soon really focus in on animation.
This is some comments he made this week along the lines of he has a couple more live action movies he wants to do, one of which I assume is this Frankenstein movie that he's been going on about for ages. The other of which I'm not entirely sure what that may be, but presumably after working on Pinocchio, or his Pinocchio, to a ridiculously successful degree, he wants to put a lot of his time purely into animation, which I think is really interesting. Obviously, Del Toro's a massive creative force. Animation is a genre that is constantly evolving in terms of style, much more so than live action movies, really, when you think about it. You can do so much more with animation. Animation is limitless, because it is
anything you could think of.
Imagination.
Yes, and it feels very much similar to maybe a bit of what Tim Burton did. It seems like after some big live action things, he did kind of delve into more producing of animated things. So it seems very similar to what he was able to do after purely doing or focusing in on live action.
Yeah, but I like this mentality. I trust near enough everything that Guillermo del Toro will say and will think and will put out.
Yeah, I mean, especially after the success of Pinocchio, it's not surprising he'd want to kind of continue on with that media.
And ridiculously impressiveness, or the ridiculous impressiveness of Pinocchio, of his Pinocchio as well, and however many years it took to do something like that, it being stop motion, and obviously it taking forever to do, because stop motion does take forever to do.
Yes.
But Guillermo del Toro is Mr. I take forever to do things, because I've actually only made about 8 movies, yet feel like I've done so much more.
Yeah.
Because I always talk about doing so much more and have all these ideas. Like I said, he's a massive creative force. And I really like, if he wants to go purely into animation, I have a feeling we'll end up with some pretty stellar animated movies.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So I have faith in his decision or his mentality to go and do that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Kind of a no-brainer choice, I think.
Yes. Well, we just want to bring that up as a little topic first, because we do also have this this trailer, new Pixar movie. We're about to, or have already, or in the midst of a release of a Pixar movie with Elemental. But we got a new teaser trailer this week for their upcoming movie called Elio, which seems to be about a small child who gets stuck in space and has to deal with a load of different alien species. And do we like the look of it, Jeannine?
I mean, I saw the trailer and wasn't super excited about it. I think the last Pixar movie I was really interested in was Turning Red, and anything else kind of in the ladder of Pixar I haven't really been hugely excited about. So yeah, I mean, it looked fine, but nothing like really there to hype me up very much. I do prefer this animation to Elemental. Like, I wasn't super even hyped on the idea of Elemental, just because I'm really not a fan of how the animation looks. So I haven't seen it yet, but
no, we haven't seen Elemental yet. So we don't really, I mean, it might be a wonderful movie.
Yes, but nothing there that really is getting me excited. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, the consistent magic of Pixar was lost many years ago now, when you were guaranteed an absolutely phenomenal animated movie every single time. And because we're spoiled now with the style of animation seen in the Spider-Verse movies, we talked about this last week. I think, looking at the tried and tested formula of Pixar CG animation, doesn't hold the same sense of wonder anymore after seeing that, after seeing Spider-Verse coming at, only a week after doing that. I expect animated movies to look like that now.
And be as ambitious as that, like, combining all these different animation styles, as well as crafting a really interesting story with cool characters, and really building an interesting world. Yeah, I mean, the story looks fun, but nothing there was like, oh my gosh, I have to see that now. So I don't know.
I think they could almost do with. I still feel like Pixar do a little bit too much. Like, have once every 3 years. Imagine if a Pixar movie was once every 3 years. You'd feel like they would be consistently great at that point,
Yeah, it seems like they've been coming out back to back, really close together.
I know a bit of that was due to, pandemic releases and that kind of stuff, and you ended up, with the forgotten few of Pixar, your Onwards and your Souls and your things like that. Even Turning Red was a COVID movie, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That just seemed to all just drop at the exact same time, and it's just, I am overwhelmed with Pixar now. What's what, who's who, and I've definitely not watched them all. But I feel like it's always it's always better to take more time. And I understand they obviously want to get more movies out there, and perhaps they now are willing to go in any direction, really, with their, with their stories, because perhaps they've realized that they're not perfect anymore. They haven't been for a decade, really.
Yeah.
They've been faltering here and there. They've still brought out, do not get me wrong, some outstanding movies as far as I'm concerned, some outstanding animated movies. But I think, seeing this trailer less than a week after seeing Spider-Verse has just kind of spoiled me.
Yeah.
I don't mind like you said, I don't mind the look of the story of Elio. It seems, kind of a kid just
Thrown into this
learning.
situation.
Yeah, thrown into the situation. It seems to be a near future kind of thing, but then he gets trapped in this whirlpool thing or vortex thing and kind of jets off to some planet somewhere where there's a whole load of different creatures
Yeah, he
putting
gets
him on
abducted
trial
by
for being the leader of Earth.
Yes, he gets, like, abducted by aliens and asked to be and they assume he's the leader, and he gets asked to, like, kind of negotiate something on Earth's behalf, so
So whether there'll be elements of political stuff in there, you don't know. There
which
might
Disney
be.
does like to do, yes.
It might be a bit of a child's introduction to political
Politics.
beliefs and to politics, but it might be. But I think that could be very interesting. That could work really well. It would have to be done in a certain level of intelligence, and you always tend to have faith that Pixar will do that because that they are capable
Yeah.
of doing that sort of stuff. They have a track record for doing that sort of stuff, but they also have a track record for making unnecessarily silly movies that have little substance to them
That is
these
true.
days, which is a shame. Or sometimes even reading the room entirely incorrectly, like we're all led to believe Soul was, where it just transformed its black protagonist into a little ghost
And
for
then he was
most
a
of the
cat
movie.
for
And
and
he
then
was a
he
cat,
was yes,
and
and
then he
had a
was
white
Tina
lady
Fey.
embodying him for the most majority of the film. Yeah.
Tina Fey's fine, we don't mind that, but that's the point. It's just,
Yeah.
you can never be too sure anymore. And I think
Yeah.
maybe once we see Elemental, for for better or worse, as for good or bad, then we'll have more of a clear indication on the excitement levels for Elio. But we should talk about it. We should be into seeing it because at the end of the day, it is still Pixar. And
Yeah. Who have a pretty decent track record. I just haven't really been excited about their last few films, and I don't know if that's
no,
just,
I'm the same.
they didn't really get the attention necessary or like other films because of COVID releases and at-home streaming releases and things like that. But even in watching those films, I was able to find something I really enjoyed in Turning Red that I didn't in those other films. So,
Yeah, I
I'm,
mean, Turning Red.
you know,
Turning Red is a great movie.
Yes, and while I'm not a fan of the animation style of Elemental, I'm still, like, interested in seeing it, and, yeah, depending on how that looks and how that story goes, then that might, boost my interest in seeing Elio, but as of right now, like, it's a fun, cute little story, but just very not something that's really drawing me in, so,
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I
yeah.
do. Before we get into a couple of reviews, though, there is a bit of news based around the new DC movie slate and movie world and all that kind of stuff, headed by James Gunn, as we often like to talk about on Monday Madness. This is based really to do with the Flash, because the Flash's director, Andy Muschietti, has, I believe, now been confirmed to be directing Batman the Brave and the Bold, which is going to be, Gunn's version of Batman, aside from Pattinson and Matt Reeves and all that sort of stuff. That
doing
is
their
its
own
own
thing.
separate thing.
Yeah.
Of which I also think there's news that the Penguin show with Colin Farrell has, I think, now paused due to the writers' strike.
Yeah.
So, there's going to be delays. There has been news of other delays as well. I don't even know why the MCU bothers putting years ahead slates out there anymore, because they always change.
Yeah.
They always get pushed back and a few brought forward and messed around and moved around. Why do they even bother trying to excite everyone with, we're going to get Avengers Secret Wars in 2025. Oh, no, wait, no, we're not. We're going to get it in about 2028.
Yeah.
Or something like that, because push back, delay.
Yeah.
Oh, how fun. What's the point? Why don't they just announce
just
the
let
movie?
when it's for sure
time,
confirmed. Yeah.
It's because it never stays the same, does it? I had this issue actually recently with football fixtures, which isn't an exciting topic for you, I'm sure, Jeannine. But obviously next season's Premier League fixtures have been announced. So, you see when United are playing certain teams throughout the season, about 20% of them will stay on the days they are currently scheduled on, because of other tournaments, because of European football, because of all this sort of stuff. And it annoys me. Why can't they just do month by month so we know what's going
exactly
on?
when nothing's going to, no wiggle room for changes announcing so far out.
We're all supposed to be getting excited.
Yeah.
To play Arsenal 3 days before Halloween, but we probably won't play Arsenal 3 days before Halloween now.
Yeah.
Because we'll be playing in the Champions League on the Wednesday or something like that, and there won't be enough time, and it's all silly. It's needless. You don't need to do it so far in front when you know full well it's going to change anyway. It's my feeling on football fixtures, and it's my feeling on big slate releases. Like, I don't mind. What do you think anyway about this Andy Muschietti being, heading the Batman the Brave and the Bold?
Well, I mean, I have liked what I've seen from him. I did enjoy both It movies. I know people didn't really care for It Chapter 2, but I did enjoy it. And then after, having seen The Flash, I think he could competently direct a Batman story. I think the story of The Flash and the character interactions and all of those things and the structure of the story was well handled and well done. There were other issues that plagued the film for sure that were distracting, but I don't think that's too much that you can speak on the director. Although he has come out and said some things about issues in The Flash, almost kind of taking responsibility for that aspect of it. So I would hope that in this Batman movie, he will be a director who can, at least maybe if he is not capable, find somebody who can help him figure out how to do things more practically. Because that was definitely what The Flash was lacking, a lot of practicality in terms of fight sequences and action and just a lot of shots in general that could have been done with more practical effects and feeling like your characters are really existing in something, where they just rely way too much on CGI. So I would hope that in a Batman movie, you would definitely not want to focus on heavy CGI and really focus on making this world feel real. And I know that's kind of what the Matt Reeves Batman movies are
exactly what
did really well. So I hope he can create a world that does make Gotham feel real and grounded. Because I know he's really good with character stuff, so I don't think that's in trouble, in jeopardy with him directing a Batman movie, but, kind of the aesthetic elements is what I would have some concerns about.
Yeah, well, he's got to make it feel different
Yeah.
to Matt Reeves' stuff as well, because really, you assume that the second Batman movie from Matt Reeves is going to do just as well and probably be just as good
Yeah.
as the first one. There's the TV show. That world isn't going anywhere for some time.
Yeah.
You know, it really isn't. So it's going to come to a point where a Muschietti Batman movie is coming out from the same company that does the Matt Reeves Batman
Yeah.
world. And it can't feel similar to that, but it's then got to compete with that.
That's true.
Really, hasn't it? It's then got to
Yes,
compete to be
but I think his
as
style
good,
is
as
really
good if
different.
not better,
Yeah.
but different.
Yeah.
And not
Well,
feel gummy and CG like I'm led to believe the Flash does.
yes, so, I mean, I think we're fairly safe in that I can see that him and Matt Reeves are very different directors in terms of their style choices. Um, so I see Muschietti really focusing on more character elements in character relationships, because I think that is something he really did well with things like It and with the Flash. So
Okay.
I'm hoping we'll get a lot of good relationship character stuff with a Batman movie from him, and I think that's a really important element. So yeah, I think he's a good pick for a Batman movie, and yeah, just hope he works on his aesthetics.
That's all we want, clearly.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you just get straight on into it then, Jeannine? Because let's give a bit of non-spoiler.
Okay.
Yes.
So
But
yes, I did see.
give your thoughts on the Flash. This is going to be. I don't know if this is going to be. Should I clip this up and use it as your official review, or will you do a separate big spoilery one? There's a thought.
I mean, I think it's good to have a non-spoiler and a spoiler review
I
out
will
there,
do
so
both
we can
then.
we can do both. Yes.
We can do
So
both.
non-spoiler review for The Flash. I saw it and it was really built up, I think. Um and I don't think it lived up to kind of the big built upness that people were talking. I think the built upness came out of some interesting cameos that we get in this movie. So those were really fun to see. Um the
Not uncanny valley and horrible and kind of offensive
I
in a way
mean,
of milking dead people.
I think they
Some people
worked.
have said that. That's all I'm saying that for.
Yes.
Some people have come out and said that it felt grotesque.
I think they work, but, because he does go on to defend the CGI in the film when people have criticized it, that when, uh, Barry is in kind of this time bubble that he's created, the CGI does look a little gummy and weird and like cuts, video game cutscene-ish. And it's meant to look like that because it's not reality. It's like the layers of other realities. It's the layers of what's happening in his mind and layers of time kind of melding together. So it's not supposed to completely look natural. So I'm like, okay, I'll give him that.
Is that
So
just a very clever excuse?
I mean, I could believe that if that was the only time the CGI looked weird, but it's like throughout the whole movie. So,
Oh,
um, yes, it does look like it looks clearly like the people that it's supposed to look like, but it does look like PS3 kind of level
oh,
cutscene. Yes, like level
dear.
animation of the characters that we're getting to see. So it was fun, a fun idea to have some of these cameos in here. Um,
Not saying who because non-spoiler.
yes, I wouldn't. I'm not gonna. I'll leave that to you to see for yourself. But yeah, I think that was a fun element. I did like the relationship between the two Barrys. I think there was a good play off of each other because the Barry that we do end up meeting from the past is like 18, so he's an 18-year-old, excitable, hyper, unfocused version of the character having to, be wrangled by the more mature version of the character, and even that version of the character we
Seems
know to not be incredibly
strange.
mature. So our version of Barry has to kind of mature himself even more in order to wrangle this very young version of himself. So that
I
dynamic.
think Ezra Miller should look at this character and put it onto their own life.
Yes, definitely. There were a lot of moments in this film where I was feeling some things about this is a weird
Is it
parallel
a
of thing.
case of how can you not see the parallels with your own life?
There were a few moments like that actually, where things were happening and I'm like, this feels like
That's weird. That's
things that kind of relate to
weird.
the
That's
outside. But
strange.
yes. So I mean, but the dynamic between the two Barrys, this already kind of Barry that's trying to be mature, having to step up to wrangle this very younger, unfocused version of himself, was a fun dynamic. Really emotional scenes, I think, were well played with him trying to, having that focus of wanting to save his mother. A really well crafted story in terms of why he goes back. How it opened with it opens with kind of a fun set piece as well, and that's where we get our Ben Affleck Batman in there.
Okay.
Really keeping it despite earlier iterations kind of being dead in the water of this universe, still connecting it to that and feeling like it relates. So I was worried that they were going to try to find some weird way to cut that tie, like sever that tie immediately and just try to do its own thing. But no, it's still very much grounded in the Zack Snyder verse that was kind of set up,
Yeah.
which I think
A
is fine.
good send off for the
Yes.
DCEU, then, as it was called.
Yes. There are some moments in the middle where it does drag a little bit when we are kind of in the um meeting Michael Keaton Batman and then kind of
Okay.
formulating how we're going to defeat Zod, that whole kind of sequence that
Yeah.
happens. That's where things I think drag and slow down a little bit. Michael Keaton was great. It was good to see him again. He feels very much like the character and where he would be at in his older life, especially, at this point, we saw how old Michael Goff was in those movies. So imagine this is a Bruce being on his own without
Yes. Yes.
an Alfred to take
No
care of
Alfred
him. Yeah. So he does feel very much like a reclusive Bruce Wayne of the one that we knew in 89 and 92, and where he would be without an Alfred living on his own. I think there was a lot of, I recently rewatched those films before going to see The Flash. So, from what I could tell, there was at least a little bit of attention paid to making rooms and even the Batcave elements look very similar to what was in those movies, which
Okay.
I thought was kind of a cool little thing. Um, uh, uh, Kara, our Supergirl, she was really great, but I think she was a bit underutilized. I would have loved to see more of her.
That's a
But in the scenes
shame.
that she was in, she was great. So overall, a well-crafted story. I think it does drag a little bit uh once we are kind of getting to the Zod stuff. It kind of circles back to what our villain ends up being pretty well. And the time travel stuff I think works really well also. And yeah, I had fun with it. The only thing that was just really sloppy and distracting really was the CGI. It was very sloppy. Like,
Which is
if,
such a shame.
think the baby from Ally McBeal, like levels of bad in some of these scenes. Yeah.
It makes you wonder how, though.
Yes.
It
And
makes
like
you wonder how after
think back.
so long of a production.
Yes, like there's no excuse. You were in post-production for so long. There was plenty of time and I'm sure plenty of money to go back and really clean these things up. Like we can go back to what, 1946 with a Betty Davis movie, A Stolen Life, where she's playing twins,
Yeah.
and she's playing in a room against herself at the same time. The Parent Trap movies, both of them, when they came out, seamless, one actress playing the same person together, and it looking seamless and clean, and just
You
doing
get
stand-in type of stuff.
the Dark Mirror with Olivia de Havilland. I think that's 1948.
Yes, and
Does the same
really
thing.
good practical effects and camera trickery and things like that that worked so well. But this movie tries to have the two berries really interact more, and it looks good in a lot of scenes, but then other ones you can tell there's like a gummy berry face on somebody else, and it just you can tell immediately. So it just doesn't look right, and I'm like, why not just do practical things where you can, or try to clean this up? Because what makes the CGI not look as smooth is because they don't worry about pores and texture. It's all very smooth, and that's why it looks so much like
Oh.
early gummy CGI, especially in the movement and the action. It looks very kind of smooth and gummy because there's no pores, there's no texture really, like we've seen in really advanced CGI films. So I just don't get, there's no excuse for them to not have been able to have the time or even the money to go back, and especially if you are banking on this film, you're already saying that, despite all the shit with Ezra Miller, we're still going to release this movie because we are trust in how good it is. Then why not put your money where your mouth is and put that money into cleaning it up? Because I think if the CGI had looked as clean as it could have looked, I think it would have not been, you know, not have had as much criticism as I think it's getting, because I think that's the biggest thing for most people is the CGI.
Yeah, because it's not as though that level of CG is the norm anymore. You
Yeah.
know, there's phenomenal CG in a good deal of major blockbuster movies
Yeah.
today. There's some still has some fairly dodgy CG, some fairly iffy CG, as I would like to say.
Yeah.
Um, Clearly, this is one of them.
But
But for something like this, it shouldn't be everybody talking about the fact that it's visually strange to look at. It's uncanny sometimes visually.
yeah.
And I always think, look, Zack Snyder was a CG monster, wasn't he? Really,
Yeah.
he loves CG. He loves over stylizing things and
Yeah.
making
He's all
things
about the visuals, yeah.
look, the super slow mo and all this kind of stuff. But I always think that looked good.
Yes, it looked really smooth, it looked realistic. Um,
Like,
he always
it
made
was
a point.
heavy. It was clearly heavily CG,
Yeah.
but it was good looking. It was the same kind of level that you got in the big two Avengers movies, your Infinity War and Endgame. It's the
Yeah.
same level that I suppose it's not quite this level because this movie was a particularly unique one, but Avatar: Way of Water, it's that same idea of you're fully aware that it's all CG, but it still looks
Looks
wonderful.
incredible because there's a focus on pores and texture and coloring and tones and all of these different things, but
That's what I
everything here
always
just
thought with
looked so,
Snyder's anyway.
yes, everything in this just looked so smooth and flat, and you could totally tell, and, like, it felt like there were things that could have been done, like I talk about, the one actor playing 2 characters in the same scene. Things
Yeah,
that could have been done practically, things that, like, even fight sequences that could have been done with stunt people, because like, the MCU has an insane amount of stunt things that they do with wire works and stunt doubles and all of these things, and it looks really real, or doing, like, bird's eye view shots, and I'm thinking about, like, the, Black Widow fight scene in the hallway and stuff like that
yeah,
in Iron Man 2. Um, and do your fight scenes in dynamic shots if you don't want to like worry about showing people's faces. Um, Especially with the Batman stuff, because he's one who's doing hand-to-hand fight
yeah.
stuff. He's not doing anything super crazy like Supergirl
I, s-
or you know.
Well, I suppose in a way, you have got to heavily rely on CG fighting
Yeah.
for someone like the Flash because he's sprinting at the speed of light everywhere.
Yes, but think of something like Sherlock Holmes, those slow-mo fight scenes with Robert Downey Jr. punching somebody, and we're seeing the slow-mo. You know, they could have
Yeah.
worked with his slow-mo and shown those things with a
And
very
then I
smooth kind
suppose
of effect.
you also think of those Evan Peters Quicksilver scenes in the X-Men movies that were
Yes.
really quite good.
Yes, and they did a lot of, and that is a heavily CGI scene, but they did a lot
Yeah.
of practical things as well. Like, they had people just get those items that were floating tied to strings and stuff like that. Um, so there was some combination of the 2, but it felt like it was just so reliant on the CGI. So, like, even scenes of Batman fighting felt a bit gummy movement, like he wasn't really there, or there wasn't really a stuntman in the suit doing these actions. So even stuff like that just felt like, come on, like, use stunt people, use wire work, do something to make this feel grounded and real, like it's existing, and I'm not just watching this video game cutscene. So there were moments where I felt like practical stuff could have been used, and it felt like it was just too reliant on the CGI. So that was probably the biggest issue for me that pulled me out of the movie. But story wise, I think the story was pretty well focused, pretty well done, aside from some slower moments. Bruce Wayne, Michael Keaton, great. I think Ben Affleck was good as well. I think Ezra Miller did a good job in terms of having to play off of themselves, and having to play the emotion of Barry losing his mother and all of that, and wanting to save his father. He had a lot of scenes and kind of this developing relationship with Iris West, so that brought in some fun comedic elements, and even the stuff with Barry brought in a lot of fun comedic moments as well. I thought the idea of the cameos were fun, and I felt like if you're going to kind of go for that, go all the way with it. Um, and also, yeah, just make the CGI better, 'cause, I can it didn't bother me as much because it was in that kind of whole time bubble that, was
Yeah.
described as things not meaning to look super clean. It's meant to be this melding of things. Um, but I get what people would say about it looking kind of uncanny valley-ish. But I had fun kind of seeing the different things that kind of were popping up there. So overall, I enjoyed the film. There is a post-credit scene, so stay for that.
Naturally.
Um, and yeah, overall enjoyed it. I think it was built up a little too much. I think it's because of all the little fun things that are sprinkled throughout it is what made people kind of have this great kind of idea on it.
So it
I
is
would
not the greatest DC movie of all time.
No, I think it's maybe up there for me. It might crack my
Okay.
top 5 of the DCEU films, but
Oh, no, I mean,
definitely.
like, DC
Oh,
all
DC of
time,
all
because people were
time?
saying DC all time, it was
I
best
wouldn't
run.
say DC all time, no. Um,
Not
of
close, really.
I mean, it's in the conversation, but I don't think it's beating
Okay.
a lot of things. So, Um, yeah, I enjoyed The Flash. I think it's a fun movie. I think it's a fun idea. I think it's a good story. I think the performances are good. But the CGI lets it down. It's a little too long and lulls in parts. Um, but some good character dynamics, and some fun little Easter eggs in there. So
Okay. Okay, well, there we go. That's one non-spoiler review down, Janine. You did promise another one because
Yes. So this was a
this was
movie.
for a reason.
This was a movie you mentioned on a Monday Madness weeks ago, when we were
I
kind of
think
talking about our most anticipated movies, and this was your most
yes.
anticipated movie.
I think this
Um,
was
of
at the very start of the year.
yes, we were talking, I think, our most anticipated movies of the year, and this was one that you had brought up. And, so it's this Juneteenth, um, release, not for you, apparently you're not getting this film till August, which is so ridiculous. But I saw The Blackening, this really funny kind of meta black, horror movie. Um, a lot of fun where a bunch of friends go to a cabin in the woods to stay for the weekend. They find this creepy game called Blackening. They start playing the game and one by one ask questions that could cause them to all get killed. And so it's a whole big thing playing into blacks and horror tropes, which is a lot of fun. So non-spoiler review here. I really enjoyed this movie. I did expect it to be more like laugh out loud funny, which it wasn't, but it was still very much like relatable chuckle to yourself at a lot of things funny.
Okay.
So there are a lot of things that like if you're a black person, if you know black people, if you understand kind of the black lexicon and black conversation, even you can get something out of it and be like, okay, I get that. Um, just some really funny jokes in terms of what black people do and how they really feel about things, but they don't really say out loud. Um, the dynamic between the cast, I think was really fun. They all had great chemistry. You felt like they were all friends who've known each other for years and really razz each other about stuff and all kind of have different facets of of black people you might know. And so that they have fun kind of playing with that when they're going throughout the game and calling each other out for certain dynamics with each other and aspects about each other that make them more black or less black or whatever.
It sounds like it gets the tone that I think I was expecting, that I think I was looking
Yeah.
for, that I think I wanted from it.
Yes.
Which is good. I suppose it's good that, because it could come off as quite offensive, really, I suppose,
Yes.
and highly stereotypical. But if you're, towing that line of actually playing off of those stereotypes,
Yeah.
making fun of them while enacting them, and it becoming
Yes.
an in-joke, then
Yes, the
it's
whole
going to be
movie
great.
is a big in-joke that you're chuckling to yourself at. So there's nothing in here that's inherently, like, laughing out loud, but there's several
Yeah.
things that are just, like, laughing to yourself because you just get it, and it's so on point with, the Black experience in terms of how they are in horror films and just everyday, like, Black people things in terms of how they view media and, how they view each other, and it's a lot of fun because you have stuff about, gay Black people and more white presenting, as they're called, Black people and biracial Black people, Black people from Africa,
Okay.
dark skinned Black people, light skinned Black people, um, Black people who grew up kind of in the hood with a kind of a gangster lifestyle, like with guns and gangbanging and stuff like that. And so, yeah, you're dealing with all different kind of aspects of different types of Black people and how that plays into how they view each other when this game kind of pushes them to that, and it's done in a really fun, real way. um, and
I
on top of
do like the game element of it as well, because, maybe this is just because we have come off of a game movie series
Yes.
and
So the
has
game is not the whole movie. The game is like a
okay.
decent segment of the movie, and then we get into more of the horror aspect. So this movie delves into some really fun, kind of tropey things without sacrificing the horror. So we do get some good horror moments as well, some scary moments, blending really well with the comedic moments. And yeah, again, this cast just has really great chemistry together. It's believable that they're friends and know each other really well and just have fun kind of poking at each other, but generally there's some love there. Um, we do set up kind of a contentious dynamic with some of the characters as well at the beginning. So that's kind of something that plays in seriously and comedically throughout the story. So I had a lot of fun with the Blackening, and kind of I'm in the mindset right now. If I had the choice to see the Flash again or the Blackening again, I'd probably go see the Blackening again. So I do hope
Good.
people go out and see this movie and support it. It has a very limited amount of screens and show times, but it's a lot of fun. I think it deserves some love. It deserves to be checked out. So, yeah, I think people should go check out The Blackening and celebrate today, Juneteenth.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Yes, of course. Happy
Yeah,
Juneteenth.
happy Juneteenth.
I suppose we should be saying. I should have said that at the
At the top
start
of the
of the
show,
show, for
yes.
goodness sake. I forgot what date it was. Sorry. I'll blame the fact that I forgot
We
what
don't
date it
record
was.
on the days that,
Certainly
but
not.
yeah.
Certainly not. Good. I like that. I like that it seems to be what it should have been.
Yeah.
And you saying all that has just made me doubly excited to actually go and watch this movie for myself, because it sounds like a great installment into the history of black horror. Jeannine.
Yes.
A new installment that it is, and a comedic installment, because I
Yes.
think modern black horror has been decidingly uncomedic.
Yeah.
For
It
the
has
most
its
part.
glimmers, but
Great,
mostly, yeah.
great, but uncomedic.
Yeah.
And it's nice that something like The Blackening can come along and throw the comedy into horror as well, because that's obviously a big part of horror's history, is its intermingling with the humorous and the terrifying. Great, I like that. Yes, applause for The Blackening then, Jeannine.
Yes.
Good. It weaves us nicely into our Let's Talk for today, that as we wanted to have a discussion on the best of black horror throughout history, as it is, obviously we're both horror fans, big horror fans.
Yeah.
We are somewhat studied on black horror, given historical series on Morgan Hasn't Seen, and even some episodes of It's a Wonderful Podcast, the main show.
Yes.
We like to get into that particular subgenre, that particular section.
Yes. I
of
was
horror
really
history.
I was really excited when we did a black horror kind of series. I think we did a bunch of genre films, all about black people, and so we did black action and black romance, and so then we did delve into some black horror, which I think was really fun. So
It also, obviously has gifted us one of our mutual favorite movies. We have
yes,
these movies every so often, don't we?
yeah, we
That
do.
we cover on one of the shows that we just both latch onto so much for seemingly no real reason. Sometimes it's because it's a great movie. I think most of the time it's because it's a great movie, but there's individual ones that maybe don't be the best movie.
Yeah.
But for some reason it just hits a spot. And that particular series of Morgan Hasn't Seen gifted us with a viewing of Blackula.
Yes.
Which is truly one of the best and most entertainingly enjoyable vampire movies you could possibly wish for.
Because you hear the name and you think it's gonna be a little bit ridiculous. It's in the blaxploitation era, so you think,
It
"Okay,
is a
this is."
blaxploitation
Yes,
movie. It is.
and you think it's going to be wholeheartedly a little bit silly like those films, violent. Your characters are going to be, caricatures or stereotypes, without any kind of, while those blaxploitation films are a lot of fun, your characters are very much, um kind of pigeonholed as one thing. There's not a lot of depth
Absolutely.
to them.
That's
Um,
always the conversation when it comes to the blaxploitation genre.
yes.
Is
So
it has its good and bad, given the fact
yeah.
that it depicts near enough everybody as blatant stereotypes. However, it's the first instance of a lot of these types of people being in such major movies.
Yes, black people getting their own genre of film, getting to be highlighted, getting to be movie stars, getting to have their own film world,
And certainly
and film industry.
the action heroes in blaxploitation movies, I think, are far less stereotyped than the villains, by the
Yes.
way.
Yeah.
John Shaft really is just a hard-nosed, hard-talking detective vigilante kind of character.
Yeah.
The villains he comes up against are the stereotypes.
Oh, yeah, the pimps and all
The
that.
pimps and the drug
The
lords
drug
and the
dealers, yeah.
stereotypes.
Yeah.
Think of every Pam Grier character, Coffee and
Yes.
Foxy Brown and all this kind of stuff. She's not really a stereotype, but everybody she comes across is.
Yeah.
of all those people in Coffee King George.
Oh my
And all
gosh,
this
and his
kind of
whole
stuff. I mean,
theme
I've never
song
seen a
walking up.
larger stereotype in my entire. I've also never seen a larger something else in my entire life.
Yeah, those
George,
pants were tight, real tight.
Far too tight, but it's not
Yes,
the point, is it?
but Blackula, I mean, so like
Blackula is
going into that movie
an
expecting it to
intelligent
be,
movie.
yes, expecting it to not have as much to say as it does, not expecting it to be purely as romantic as it is, not expecting it to William Marshall to have so much gravitas and just engage you and take over that screen. Um, he is so sexy in that movie, so sophisticated. Uh, just even from the beginning, and I love that he had so much say and input in who this character was, and I think that's what informed the trajectory of this movie, not just being kind of surface level silliness or being so based in stereotypes, and these characters actually felt real. The fact that he chose to make his character a prince, an African prince who or king or dignitary who wanted to, his whole point was trying to lobby and talk with the actual Count Dracula to abolish slavery and how are we going to work together to get this done. But Dracula is like, no, slavery is great. Don't want to end it. I'm going to kill you.
Loves slavery.
Yes. And he doesn't want it to the point where he turns this prince into a Dracula and kills him essentially.
Into a Dracula. Well, essentially
into a vampire.
Is the reasonable
Yes.
word to say.
Yes.
That sounded, you know what that sounded like? That sounded like a toddler saying, "You're a Dracula."
Well, I mean, I think the word association is so intertwined. It's very hard to.
No, I think it makes sense. I just
like what I mean when I say that. But yes,
I know exactly what you mean. I just latched onto that phrase and found it funny.
Yes, but then he's called Blackula, so he's obviously
he is a Dracula. You are right.
Connection to Dracula. So yes, Dracula doesn't want to deal with having to end slavery, so he just turns this man into a vampire, only for him to be found and awoken, and now looking for his bride that he was with when he was with Dracula. So he finds this woman who is kind of the reincarnation of his lost love and tries to woo her, and that's kind of it's very much like Imhotep, a la the Mummy.
It's like the Mummy.
Yes,
it's exactly like the Mummy. It's the story. It's that story, really, isn't it?
Yes,
but being unfairly killed, reawoken, and you're finding the reincarnation of your love interest from centuries.
Yes, essentially it is the same. And but I think because of William Marshall, you are definitely sympathizing with his Blackula more than you are with Imhotep, for sure. So
well, maybe not in Boris Karloff's case. I sympathize with, mind you, Boris Karloff.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about the Brendan Fraser.
I know you're talking about Brendan Fraser, but I naturally gravitate towards
of course you do.
Karloff's The Mummy.
Of course you do.
Yes, I mean, obviously, Imhotep in Brendan Fraser's The Mummy is a little bit over the top and sending all these minions on people.
Yes, and the plagues and all this.
Yeah, there's no need for it all.
Yes. So, just to sustain himself, that's when we do get our horror elements with him actually, biting people and sucking their blood and killing people and all of that.
Sign today, Jeannine, my sign.
Yes.
I'll have a Bloody Mary, which is a great quote.
And he says that in a cool nightclub, and I love that there was a whole point. If you do watch the great documentary Horror Noir, they do actually have a whole segment where they get into Blackula and kind of the behind the scenes stuff, and the director William Crane is talking about there was this whole scene of this club and they wanted the white people and the black people to be separate on the dance floor, but he was very much about let's integrate the people and have them all mixed together dancing. Just even things like that were a bit of a fight for him, being the only black man behind the scenes of that set. So the fact that
he wasn't he? Yeah, and he was the director.
Yes, and so the fact that he had no one else like him on that set to help him make these decisions or to fight with him to just get these little things in there. He had kind of an uphill battle, but I think the fact that he was able to win the little battles with William Marshall, like making that character a prince, a nobleman,
Yeah.
and being able to just integrate the dance floor, really spoke to kind of taking steps to really establishing, Black people and their importance and their contributions to film sets and in film. So, yeah, if you watch horror noir, you really get a lot more insight about just how important this movie was in terms of Black depictions in horror. So, William Marshall just so great in this movie, and absolutely fell in love with him, fell in love with the story. He was just so smooth and slick, and um, and then even kind of scary in the moments where he is, full Blackula mode, and
He
a
doesn't he
great
doesn't look exactly suave and slick and all the
no,
kinds of
with his
sexy words you were
Blackula
using when he's
face.
got his Blackula face on.
Yes, he's a very
He's got
hairy looking.
horrible sideburns and
Yes, and like
he's kind of
unibrow and all bushy
yeah,
face, and yes, he looks kinda crazy. But, a very iconic horror shot as well with that, vampire woman running down the
yes,
hallway
to
in that
kill Elisha
slow-mo.
Cook Jr.
Yes, yes,
Yes, we like that.
yes, so yeah, great mix of horror, gothic romance, and just a push forward for Black people in horror with Blackula. It's so good, so good.
I mean, it really is. You think because of the genre of movie it falls into, the style of movie it falls into, the time at which it came out, it would just be exploitative. It would be schlocky.
Yeah.
It's so much more.
Yes, I was expecting full schlock, and it was
It's
so
a
much more than
really
that.
well crafted vampire movie.
Yeah.
It's got intelligent things to say, important things to say, while being just a really damn fun vampire movie as well.
Yes.
It's great that you can get something like that. Obviously, only a few years after Night of the Living Dead, which is often considered a turning point for Black people in horror, simply because your lead is Dwayne Jones, your lead is a Black man, and George Romero always said
Having
that
this accidental commentary.
yeah, it was entirely accidental, yet you feel like it couldn't have been done any other way, particularly
Yes.
the ending of the movie.
Right? How it ends and how that plays so much into these deeper themes, especially in the time it came out. And George Romero literally I just picked the best man for the job. And the fact that it
Yeah.
becomes this cultural interpretation of things is so interesting.
I can only assume George Romero picked Dwayne Jones and then highlighted a few elements of the movie to say, what if we make it a little bit about race as well?
Yeah.
So let's do that. And God, they certainly did do that. I mean, it's a ridiculously powerful movie, Night
Yes.
of the Living Dead, for again being a fun zombie movie, really, but it's
Yes.
such a poignant one, such a powerful one, such a
Yeah.
really heavy, emotional, claustrophobic, tension-fueled, kind of horrible little movie at times, because it's just people arguing with each other all the time, and
Yes, and heat the
everything's
heat
a
and the
battle.
temp yes, and then just the anger kind of building up between these characters and the tension building up on top of what's going on outside. And then even
Yeah.
having this remake now purposefully having Tony Todd in like one of his
Yes.
very few hero roles, which I love to see because if you think through Tony Todd's career, he is never a heroic character. So the fact that he's this Dwayne Jones embodiment. He was such perfect casting for that, and to see this purposeful now version of what Romero kind of did on accident was great to see as well. So I like kind of
Yeah.
going to the 90s version, and we're in a different world, we're in a different time, but now we're really casting this Black man for reasons, for iconic reasons. So
It's just we shouldn't ever, forget the importance of Dwayne Jones's casting, though, because for the history of black people in horror movies, because without him, you might still be at the same level you were at with black people in horror movies before Dwayne Jones was cast in Night of the Living Dead, where the only real depiction you got, aside from, perhaps the independent world of black movies that did exist in the time we consider old Hollywood. They certainly weren't major motion pictures, but there was a black movie industry. Aside from in major horror movies, the only things you get in are things like I Walked with a Zombie, which is just about Haitian zombies and voodoo.
And you get into those voodoo stereotypes and stuff like that.
And it's a good movie, but it is just very, here are all the black people, they're all voodoos, they're all zombies. Here they all are. It's 1942.
Yes.
So thank God that Dwayne Jones gives such a deeply real, authentic performance in Night of the Living Dead, which weirdly transforms black people in horror in the early 70s into a blaxploitation world with Blackula, but you almost don't get that in the early 70s without those late 60s things. And that was the thing with horror. It happened in many genres. Every genre, comedy movies, major action movies, everything, particularly in the 60s, even some as far back as the 50s, even in the 40s. A little bit, little hints, but it there's a trajectory. And that late 60s, early 70s period is so important in the Western movie world for so many reasons. Certainly for this race reason as well. But it's weird that, the blaxploitation horror movies, Blackula is it's a standout with the ones that I have seen. There's certainly ones that I haven't seen that I do want to see. There's a movie called Abby, which is essentially like a black exorcist movie. I know there's stuff like Blackenstein, which is supposed to be awful.
It's not said to be very good.
And is it Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde? Which is that also?
I think it's also William Crane as well.
William Crane directed it.
I think so.
But a movie I should mention, and I do want to mention, it might be horror adjacent, but it's JD's Revenge, which I think is a really quite interesting little weird blaxploitation movie. Kind of late blaxploitation because it's 76.
Okay.
But it's essentially a possession movie. So, like a young, unassuming law student. Played by Glenn Turman, I think is his name, gets possessed by the spirit of a really disgusting gangster from the 40s. A black gangster from the 40s, but like that, JD is the gangster's name, and he possesses this student to enact his revenge on those who murdered him and all this kind of stuff. Or the descendants of those who murdered him. It's a possession revenge story, but there's horror elements in there because there's the disassociation sort of thing, the loneliness that comes from I forget the actual main character's name now, from Glenn Turman, the student. He gets very isolated. He kind of, his girlfriend sees changes in him, but of course he doesn't remember the changes because he's been possessed at this time, and everything's a blackout when he gets possessed. And it's one of those situations. It's a really quite interesting movie. It's not perfect. There's better blaxploitation movies out there, but it's definitely well worth watching. It's really interesting and really quite nasty. because some
Okay.
of the stuff that JD the gangster actually does and says and
Yeah.
is shown to have done is like seriously horrible stuff.
Okay.
And he doesn't hold back. He's a real piece of work, really. But I find it a very interesting movie. I mean, Blackula even had its sequel, didn't it? Scream, Blackula,
Scream. Yeah.
which is not as good as Blackula, but it's not bad. It's got Pam Grier in it.
Yeah.
That's about voodoo, actually, isn't it?
Yes,
Scream,
I think it
Blackula,
is.
Scream's got a bit of
Yeah. Yeah.
of which it's not bad it's not a bad thing to have voodoo in there. Wes Craven did Serpent and the Rainbow.
Yeah.
Which is adjacent to black horror. It treats the voodoo as it doesn't treat the voodoo stereotypically. It treats it as just there it is. There's the fact, this exists.
Speaking of Wes Craven,
it's certainly a heavy horror movie and is a pretty decent one at that. I think it's still probably underseen as far as Wes Craven movies go.
With his whole kind of
Bill Pullman's
catalog.
Bill Pullman's the lead, and Wes Craven directed it. So whether you can call it a true black horror movie, I don't think you can.
Well, I mean, something I think that Wes Craven did that you can is The People Under the Stairs.
But it's because it's the best movie ever.
It's so good. I mean, I was so excited to show you this movie when we did Morgan Hasn't Seen, because I knew this was going to be very much up your alley. It was going to have all of the fun kind of creepy horror elements you were going to like, and also a great social commentary. I mean, this movie delves into gentrification very much like Candyman does, another movie that I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit.
It's the best double feature with Candyman. People understand. I always say that.
Yes. But yeah, you have this young black kid and wanting this better life for his family and living with his grandfather and his sister, and I believe his mother also, is sick. And their whole neighborhood is getting gentrified by this awful white couple who just are disgusting, deplorable people. Him and Ving Rhames go and sneak into the house to get some type of, money or something that these people have in the house, ultimately getting trapped in there. And so now this kid is stuck in this house with these crazy people. And so we have, our hero being this young black kid who, is poor and, trying to make a better life for his family, fighting throughout this house with these crazy people. And so it's really some fun, scary elements in there, but just having a cool new idea of what your hero could be. So absolutely love that movie.
Turns it into the darkest fairy tale you could wish for.
Yeah.
Because there is there's a girl he has to save. There's monsters he has to defeat.
Yeah.
There's seeming monsters who turn into allies that he has to team up with.
Mm-hmm.
What's his name? Is he called Toad? What's his name?
Toad. No, it's not
He's
Toad.
not called Toad, is he?
No.
Called him in the Wall.
Yes. He's actually directing a movie that my friend Roxy's Dryers.
He is, yes, I saw that. Yes. He's not called. What's his name, for God's sake?
I never remember.
No. Are you sure it's not Toad?
It is not Toad. Sean Whalen plays
Sean
him.
Whalen. Sean Whalen does play him, yeah.
Roach.
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 Sounds like Toad. It's
okay.
Roach. Toad.
Some kind of creature.
Some little scuttly creature.
Yes.
But the people under the stairs of the title themselves are essentially just kind of deformed creatures who the couple just keep locked in the basement.
Yeah.
And treat like I forget even what they are. It's been for some reason it's been too long since I've seen the movie.
Yeah, it's been a while. They're just people that they've locked down there and they've just been down there and not
But where
treated.
did they come from? I forget where they come from. Are they the children?
I think they're children.
'Cause
Yeah.
are they their children, or are they, like... 'Cause there's an incestuous thing going on, isn't there? Oh, no, there's the girl. The girl
The
is
girl,
their
mhm,
child.
Rada yes, the girl that's locked in there is their daughter.
The girl's their child, and there's a weird incestuous thing going on. It's very creepy. It's a great movie. But like you said, it does have those race elements to it as well.
Yeah.
Those and Wes Craven is low key into telling those stories.
Yeah.
Maybe with Serpent and the Rainbow as well, treating voodoo with quite a lot of legitimacy that he does in that. Although it does get weird, and obviously it gets weird, and people do, dead people do walk about being alive and... Wait, you died 3 weeks ago? Yeah, but I'm not really dead, so I'm going to help
Yeah.
you realize why. But you actually are dead, aren't you? Yes, I am dead. But you're not really a zombie. No, I'm not a zombie. It's voodoo. It's a different
Okay,
thing.
yes, I still haven't seen that one, so I do need to watch
It's a
it.
different thing.
But yeah, I mean, I think he does have a lot of respect for blacks in cinema. I mean, he also did A Vampire in Brooklyn, which
He
is
did,
just a
yes.
movie you kind of forget is a Wes Craven movie, with, Eddie Murphy and Angela Bassett, and, not one of my favorites, like, if you're kind of gonna go
It's
black vampire,
decent
but it's
enough.
decent. Yeah, I think that was a part of our black horror that we did discuss on Morgan Hasn't Seen. Um, yeah, it's like a solid story and, um, uh, yeah, like, I like that he delves into Eddie Murphy's able to kind of do his comedic thing while also being this dark character. I think
I
he had a
remember
lot of
John
input and
Witherspoon
fun.
in that movie.
Yes, yes. Um, and there's lots of physical comedy, with his familiar kind of falling to
Yeah,
pieces throughout the film.
yeah.
Uh, Angela Bassett being great as getting caught up in the trance of Eddie Murphy's vampire, and yeah, so lots of great gothic elements in there, and seeing black vampires. I like seeing black vampires. We need more black vampires. Um, but also I
Yes,
gotta give
it works. I
yeah.
don't see what difference... It doesn't make any difference, really, does it? Just have... It can offer more sometimes.
Yes. But also just I need to give Wes a nod for Scream 2, the blackest movie in the Scream franchise.
The blackest Scream movie, Scream 2. Particularly,
Yes.
of course, the opening of
The
Scream 2.
opening, so good, which there is a nod to in the Blackening, so I appreciate that.
Okay. You would have
Yes,
enjoyed that.
you have these 2 black characters talking about blacks in horror, blacks in film, great, like, commentary dynamic between the 2 of them. So I love that there's an understanding there to have this meaningful conversation with these characters, because these characters obviously are dying at the beginning of the film, uh, you know, but they do something like they do with Casey Becker. You spend time with this character for a very short period of time, but you get to know her, you get to care about her, you get to understand her a little bit, even though she's very limitedly in this film. So even just with these 2 characters, you understand their dynamic, you understand that they care about each other, and they have this really interesting view about people like them in horror movies and people like them in media in general. And so the fact that you get this really interesting conversation, because you really don't need that, but to put that in there, I think is really smart and fun and fleshes out characters that, you know, aren't going to mean much to the rest of the story, but mean something to people like me who love seeing representation and love, seeing conversations like this be had. So I think that's really special. And then to have characters like Hallie and Joel, the cameraman, being the smartest person in any Scream movie, to be like, people are getting
Yeah.
killed, I'm getting the hell out of town. And that was the actor Dwayne Jones's or Dwayne Martin. I'm thinking about Dwayne Martin,
You
who
should be
played
thinking about
yes.
Dwayne Jones. There is another Dwayne
Yeah.
Jones movie I did want to bring up as well.
Dwayne Martin, who played Joel, it was his idea. He's like, "So I think Joel should just get the hell out of town. I think Joel should just leave." And Wes Craven asked him, "Well, how would he leave?" And he says, "In a cab." So sure enough, when Joel leaves, you see him walking towards the cab. So
There you
just
go.
brilliant. And Hallie, a great best friend character. We had iconic Tatum, so then her kind of stepping in those shoes and being this great support system, having some of the best lines and comedic moments in the movie. And again, just peak representation for me in, after seeing the first movie and falling in love with it. And then to go to the second movie, seeing all the people who look like me having important things to do and interesting things to say was just super special for me. So just shout out, not wholly a black horror movie, but the Blackest Scream movie. And I do have so much appreciation for it for that. So
Yeah, well, absolutely, you should. Now, you did mention Dwayne Jones again. I'm a big
yeah.
I did
Yes.
feel I should mention another, I suppose, black vampire movie, which is Ganja and Hess, Bill Gunn's
Oh
Ganja,
yes.
which I think is also 1973, so it's the same year as Blackula. It's a terrible double feature with Blackula. Don't do it as a double feature with Blackula. You couldn't get two more different vampire movies if you wanted to. Blackula's kind of, well, it's dynamic and fun and kind of a bit brash, isn't it? And
Yeah.
kind of in your face entertaining. It's got a great soundtrack, Blackula, as well. I have some of the songs from, I think it's the Hughes
Yeah,
Corporation.
who's the band? There's like an actually known band in the.
Yeah, the Who's Corporation. That's what I
Okay.
was saying. That's the band they all dance to. I'm
Yeah.
Gonna Catch You and all those songs and
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. I have some on a playlist. I
Of course
do.
you do. You were such a
But
funk fan.
I think Ganja and Hess came out the same year. And where Blackula is all in your face entertaining, Ganja and Hess is kind of methodical and it's almost student film like. But Dwayne Jones is your lead. I forget who the female lead is in it now. I'll have to have a look at that because that's going to deeply annoy me. But it's basically an addiction movie. They just happen to be vampires addicted to blood.
Yeah.
It's treated
And
like
that's
a
a really
drug movie.
yes, and that's a really smart way to go about it, especially when it's that blaxploitation era and, like, a big theme of those movies is
The thing
drug
is,
lords and all of that.
it is not a blaxploitation movie. It does not
Yes.
fall under that genre whatsoever. It is a black movie from that time, but it cannot be considered a blaxploitation movie. It's a really, really interesting movie.
Yeah.
A movie that I think you have to be in a certain type of mood to watch because I did try and do it with a double feature with Blackula,
And it just
and
didn't.
it
The vibes were
didn't
not
work.
working.
It didn't work. But I went back and watched it another time and realized just really how interesting a movie it is. I mean, it's not,
Yeah.
it's raw. I think it was the
Marlene
only
Clark.
thing Marlene Clark, I think it was the only thing Bill Gunn ever directed. He's also in the movie. He has a really quite in-your-face nude scene in the movie, by the way. Bill Gunn, the own director, as though he just wants to expose himself.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is a bit just like, okay, there's his
Okay,
penis. That's fine, right?
that's great.
Move on,
Okay.
please.
Yeah.
But to treat your vampire story as being an addiction story and treat it as painfully seriously as Ganja and Hess treats it is so interesting. Something really that you don't see in vampire movies to that level. I think it's a great movie. But one I think certainly you do have to be in the right mood to watch.
For. Yeah.
Dwayne Jones does have a nice beard in it, though.
Yes, I haven't watched it, but I've seen pictures and clips from it, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
Dwayne, you looking kind of good with that beard.
No, I think we should speak about the modern world of black horror.
Yes.
As it's had a little rebirth, as it were. thanks really to one person, but a couple of others as well.
Yes, yeah.
With most of what Jordan Peele's been behind with Get
Yeah.
Out and Us in particular, obviously.
Yeah.
Nope, you can consider a horror movie if you want to. I don't think it's as obvious, obviously.
No,
it's not
it
as
leans
obvious.
more into the sci-fi than the
It's a
horror
sci-fi
elements.
adventure, kind of pseudo-western almost. Nope, about grand spectacle and things like that.
Yeah.
And showpiece-ness.
Yes.
If that's a word, that's not a word, but that's what it's about.
Sky
Get Out and
Jaws.
Us are pure horror movies.
Yeah.
And people still overhate Us. Why do people not
Yes.
like Us? Us is really good. Do people think the ending's weird? The hands across America? I think
And that's
probably.
kind of the whole thing that they're building to.
But
And
they
I
want
think
to
the
take
fact
over
that
the people from below, the other people, the doppelganger people that live in the mirror dimension underneath the funfair, they just want to take over. That's why they want to do the hands thing, because it's all they
Yes.
know, because it's all they ever hear on the speaker system.
Yes, but then I think it's also seemingly the bad guy wins kind of thing, but
it's
the
very
thing is
much the bad guy
yes,
wins, yeah.
but the fact that you see the looming hands of America behind her as she's driving away, like, does she really win? That's gonna follow her wherever she goes, and I think they're all gonna know that she's supposed to be one of them, and she's not, and that whole kind of thing, so
It's such a great twist as well.
yeah.
Us being that, Lupita Nyong'o was actually the doppelganger the whole
The whole
time, and it was
time.
switched when she was a child, but you never knew and you thought it was the other way around, and that's why doppelganger Lupita Nyong'o was so intense.
Yeah.
That's way more intense than the rest of them, and the rest of them were weird anyway. I don't remember much of what doppelganger Winston Duke did. He was probably just battering around.
Yeah.
Like Winston Duke tends to do, because he's about 8'4".
Yes,
And
he's a big old man.
250 pounds, but he's a big man.
Yeah.
But Lupita Nyong'o in Us is on another level. And I remember a few weeks ago, I temporarily forgot she existed in that movie, and I temporarily forgot that movie existed, because that's how my brain works sometimes. I'll remember things and go, oh God, that was really good. Let's obsess over that for half an hour and then totally forget about
Leave
it
your
until
brain.
the next time that happens.
Yes. But I think the one that definitely deals into Black commentary, of course, is Get Out.
Of course it is.
Just so smart.
Is it the best Black horror movie?
I mean,
or does that title go to Candyman?
I mean, that's tough. That's tough, because I think the messages of Get Out are so well laid out and executed, and the fact that this horror towards Black people comes out of this twisted admiration for them.
Yeah.
And jealousy of them and want to be like them. Yes, the fetishizing of them almost. Yeah, and that's such an interesting commentary to take with it. So I would have to maybe lean more towards Get Out, just because of what it's speaking to, and also just having the ending that is just so cathartic.
It is. It's such a relieving ending, really.
Yes. Yeah.
Although there was that alternate ending.
Yes,
it
it was very
miserable,
disappointing. Yeah.
You almost disappointing, yes, but I suppose
real. If you really can, yeah.
Really effective.
Yeah.
But undeniably miserable for him to end up just getting, I suppose, getting the Ben in Nightmare on Elm Street. I was about to say Night of the Living Dead treatment.
Yeah.
Wasn't he? Really?
Yes. Yeah. So I think, I don't know if there's,
We've got another one there. Oh, put him on the fire. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, what a great way to end the movie.
Sad. So sad.
leaves us all in a state of despair, doesn't it? Thank God,
Yeah.
thank God the theatrical movie of Get Out ends the way it does with what's his name, Roy. What's his name? The fella, the other dude, the mate, the friend,
Who?
the guy,
Rod.
Rod.
Rod of the
Ron.
TSA.
It's Ron. It's Ron. Ron's here. Ron's not
I
there.
believe it's Rod of the TSA.
Rod of the TSA. Sorry.
Yes.
I was nearly right. You could see why I thought he was called Ron.
Yeah, I guess.
As Ron's a good best friend.
Yes. And then we also get into Nia DaCosta's Candyman.
Nia DaCosta's well, this I wanted to kind of finish the conversation on Candyman, really.
Okay.
Because I asked that question of whether Get Out or Candyman you would consider the best black horror movie. And I think it's a fair point to say, as far as a black horror movie goes, Get Out holds the trophy. But I think as a character goes, you don't do better than Candyman.
Yes.
In the history of black horror, one character stands above Get Out as the embodiment of the history of black horror, and it is Candyman.
Yes, I mean, because he is the embodiment of black horror in terms of horror movies, but black horror in terms of what black people, the horrors they suffered through.
Yeah, the real history.
Yes.
The real black horror. That is why he is what he is. He is the spirit of that pain.
Yeah.
Who simply who takes what he wants. He is a romantic figure while being a horrifying figure.
Yeah.
He is possessive. He's manipulative. But he is vengeful. And he is completely unhinged.
Yeah.
But justifiably so because of his background, because of the story you're told about him. You understand, well, of course he's doing this. To have the story he has, the runaway slave, falls in love, gets caught, gets burned, gets bees all over him, gets mutilated, but never quite dies properly, is rebirthed as the spirit of Candyman.
Yeah.
And keeps coming back to just it's enacting revenge, but it's simply just inbuilt violence at that point of just, I am going to tear the world apart like they tore my world apart.
Yes.
So anybody that dares even think about me, shoo, with the hook.
Yeah.
You're
not going to forget. Yeah.
I watched Candyman 92 with my dad not long ago.
Okay.
And it really annoyed me. He liked the movie, but he was constantly asking, well, how's he just died like that? So Candyman's just killed him. But Candyman's not real. No, Candyman is real. He's the spirit. He's a spirit. But he's not real then. No, he is real in the movie. He's just a spirit. It's a movie.
Oh my gosh.
How does he die if he's not real? What if it's all in Helen's head? No, it's not all in Helen's head.
No, it's actually happening.
Out. It's actually happening.
Yeah.
Candyman's just staging it so Helen thinks it's all in her head.
Yeah.
Oh, I had to explain the movie. I don't like having to explain the movie.
Just watch it, enjoy it, and then we can talk after.
Although we all agreed that Trevor is a boyfriend's name. He's the worst.
Terrible.
He's the worst person ever.
I mean, if for nothing else, painting the apartment that terrible Pepto-Bismol pink color, instant death right there.
Well, she's not even dead. She's just gone into hospital, and she comes back to see you having it off with
one of your
somebody else and
students.
repainting the apartment. She's not even done anything wrong, Trevor.
No, you didn't even back her up even a little bit.
He's the worst.
Yeah, the
But
worst.
with Casey Lemons being in Candyman as well, and I just think Candyman's such a good movie.
Yes,
and as a character, what Tony Todd does with Candyman is just
so good
on another level.
so
And I'm
good.
so there you go. There's a nice
He's
painting
behind you too. Well, an iteration.
The newer iteration of Candyman, Yahya Abdul-Mateen's Candyman,
Yes.
is here with the bees covering the face. I was so happy that the legacy sequel to Candyman was as good as it was. You can say what you want about the ending of it. We don't like Tony Todd's weird CGI face. We don't like it.
I liked seeing him, but it didn't look all that great. Yes, and I
it should have just been Tony. Why did they just have normal Tony Todd?
Yeah. So why do they? So don't get it. I mean, I like that they use the little kind of shadow puppet things to illustrate that there are different iterations of Candyman and different stories of terror and horror that create these monsters. So I like that idea, but yeah, just make it the guy that was crazy and turns Yahya Abdul-Mateen into a Candyman. I didn't really. I wish they kind of.
I like that.
I wish
it's at this point it's an obsession with the lore of Candyman that some people do have.
Yes. So I just wish there was more to it than just this guy kind of being obsessed with it. I don't know if I needed like.
I suppose it does a Halloween 2018 thing.
Yeah.
Where the Doctor's just obsessed with Michael Myers. So
yeah. So I wish they would have
for a little bit.
Yes. So I wish they would have found another way to create Yahya into a Candyman aside from just a guy who was obsessed with this and that and the other, you know.
I still think it modernizes the whole story. It modernizes all the themes so well.
Yeah.
And what Yahya Abdul-Mateen is doing in that movie is, again, quite unhinged as a performance. He's going for it heavy in that movie when he's painting those just black portraits.
Yeah.
All crazy because
he's just mad. Yeah, he's going mad.
Turning.
Yes. And the fact that, like, you have to take into account he does have a connection to all of this. He's that baby.
He does. He's the kid.
He's the baby. Yes.
He's Anne-Marie's little kid.
Yes, that was in the and the fact that she's back and looks just as good as she looked.
Yeah, I mean, she does.
Black
30 years ago.
She really
does. She literally did not change.
No, she looks exactly the same. So yes, I love that, there is that connection. So you can easily understand why he, is the one that needs to make this change into a Candyman figure. But I just wish there was kind of more to it than just kind of an obsessed, like Candyman super fan almost.
But it was nasty, though.
Yes,
it was nasty.
Yes, it was.
It was thematically poignant still. It had great kills in there.
It looked great. I loved the disorienting. Because even I made a TikTok about different, because you know how
Costa directs the hell out of that movie.
Yes. But even just it's disorienting from the start, because I was doing this TikTok about the different because people were doing different the fun different kind of opening logos, studio logos that come up depending on what movie you're watching. So like Harry Potter has the Warner Brothers deteriorating each movie, like that kind of thing. And so I was doing the Universal ones, and I got to Candyman, and they're playing this like happy Candyman song, and the Universal logo is coming in backwards. And then you have the opening credits where it's completely upside down. Like you're seeing the gentrified city like upside down as you're zooming through as you're getting your opening credits. So already the movie is just so disorienting. And when I was editing the video together and I kept editing in the clip and working with the clip of the Candyman, having it come in backwards and hearing this happy Candyman, like it was literally making me nervous and like unsettling.
Did you not use like the Candyman as in Sammy Davis Jr. / Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Yes, the Candy Man, and it's just so creepy, and you see it's, like, dark, and the Universal logo's coming in backwards, and
Yeah.
me just editing that clip into a video I was making for a TikTok was creeping me out.
It's good. It's good.
Yes.
I mean, we should mention as well, before we wrap up the Let's Talk, the fact that Candyman has one of the best horror themes in terms of music.
Yes.
With Philip Glass's Candyman theme.
So
It's
gothic and romantic.
unbelievable.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
It is. It's the
great.
perfect mix of everything with it, because it's got pain in there, but it does have romance in there.
Yeah.
It has almost a level of class to it, that theme, that does come with, like you said, the kind of weird gothic romance that is prevalent in Candyman, but obviously is not front and center. Although "Be My Victim, Come to My Altar, Let's Have a Bee Kiss," and "You Are Mine Now"
in Tony Todd's voice, growly.
Is quite romantic.
Yes.
Apart from victim. Be my, if he said "be my lover" instead, "be mine." If he said "be mine" instead of "be
Have
my
they made
victim."
Candyman Valentines with, like, be
They
my
should
victim?
They should do. I might think about sending one then, if they do that. Be my victim. Not victim, though. Please don't be a victim. Be mine. I'm Candyman.
Yes. Yes.
I can't be Candyman, Jeannine. That's not
No,
racially appropriate.
you're just racist Dracula.
I'm just racist Dracula.
But one more movie just to mention.
Oh, one more movie, yes.
Great anthology in Tales from the
Hood. Of course.
Yes. Some later had some kind of ridiculous, silly sequels, but that first film definitely spoke to issues in Black culture and Black societies and putting this really cool horror spin on it. And then kind of getting into how your story's told, and then circling back to this crazy ending of, you know, your characters that you're following being a part of the story all along, I think was just really cool. And the horror aspects of that movie were so scary. The one with the councilman or the congressman who's running and ends up getting murdered by police, and then him coming back. That is probably the scariest of the stories in there. The creepy dolls, like those little slave dolls, like just so many cool visuals in this movie, and all speaking to aspects of Black history and Black culture. I think it was just so smartly told and so creepy, and so many cool visuals, and really could have come off silly, but so much effort to highlight these Black issues and really balance that with some really strong horror elements. So yes, Tales from the Hood, I think, is really, really good. Really, really underrated. Yeah.
Of course it is. Absolutely. Well, what a lovely, nice, big discussion we've had there on the best of Black horror. We hope to see much more in the future, and maybe the Blackening can become part of that conversation.
Definitely.
It should do, by all accounts there, Jeannine. By your account, at least, it should do.
Yeah.
And I like that.
A lot of fun.
But let's end the show today, as we always like to do, with some fun and games. We're going to have a bit more fun today. Because I think the last time I headed fun and games was we did something similar to this, which was in our episode when we did our Little Mermaid review.
Yes.
And I asked you to go through, or I went through every single Disney animated movie. And you gave a little quick, instant reaction on it to get your pure, unfiltered thoughts on that movie. So there's no place to hide. You may hate some movies, Jeannine. You may really like some movies that other people do not like. That is your opinion. Frozen, for example. Nobody likes Frozen. Frozen's not good. Tangled, on the other hand, wonderful movie. Everybody likes Tangled.
Yes.
Some people might be the opposite. Some people might hate Tangled. I don't trust those people.
No, I love
but
Tangles.
They might. Some people also might like Frozen and sing it all the time. I also don't trust those people if they're over the age of 7.
I have friends who love Frozen that are good
Are
people,
they over the age of 7?
Yes.
Do they sing it all the time?
They have children. So
it's a little bit more forgivable then. We're going to go through. This is because we had that trailer for Elio, Pixar's new movie. We're going to go through every Pixar movie, Jeannine.
Okay.
There is not as many as Disney animated movies, of course, because Pixar has only been going since 1995.
Yes.
Not 1937 with feature-length movies.
Yes, that was a long run of questions I got the last time. But
it was. Yes, it was. So we're going to start. I want instant, quick reaction.
Okay.
To every Pixar movie, and we'll of course start with Toy Story.
A fun surprise, great characters, so much fun. Makes you feel like a kid.
A Bug's Life.
I'm a bug, just a bug. One of the great versions of Seven Samurai. Really do enjoy
yes. Yes. Underappreciated movie that A Bug's Life is.
Good. It's good.
Toy Story 2.
Liked getting to see Woody's side of the story and learning that he had a whole history of his own. So that was really fun.
I like Toy Story 2. I think Toy Story 2 is really quite good. I've definitely seen Toy Story 2 more than I have Toy Story 1.
Really?
Like way more.
Okay.
Monsters Inc.
I do enjoy Monsters Inc. It's not one I revisit, but it's so good and it looks great and it's a fun world to be in.
I do think Monsters Inc. might actually be like my Pixar movie.
Okay. I love that when movies kind of are in a different world and you have like human world equivalents to things. So I love that there's all these monster versions of regular things.
Finding Nemo.
Super sweet, great story. It looks beautiful.
The Incredibles.
The best Fantastic Four movie.
Still.
Yes, love the style.
Will it be that in a few years' time?
Yes. Love that it's very much like Batman the animated series, having this 50s vibe, but never really tells you when it's set.
Yeah.
And has modern elements as well. It looks cool. The music, I love the music. Yeah, best Fantastic Four movie.
Got a very difficult video game I'd like to point out as well.
Oh,
PlayStation 2 licensed video game, incredibly difficult, never finished it.
Aww.
Always go back to it every so often and just
maybe you can
so hard.
Start your Twitch career and try to
it'd end up be me going, for God's sake, throw the damn thing, Bob. What are you doing? I'm pressing I'm pressing circle 4 times, Bob. Throw the bomb.
You'd be breaking things. Probably not a good idea.
I would be breaking things at beginning of noise, and I don't want to do that. Cars.
Very skippable. Very skippable. I've only seen it once, and it was fine.
Ratatouille.
Love Ratatouille. Love the music. Love the message. Anyone can cook, and beautiful food. It always makes me hungry.
Gustos.
Yes.
France. It's French. Yes. That was French. WALL-E.
WALL-E is also one I don't revisit very much, but it's a sweet movie. It's simple, but yeah. I mean, I think it's overrated because of that first segment. It's a bit overrated. It's got that great, beautiful opening, and then it kind of slows down, and it's not that's good. It's not really that great after that, but a solid general story. Like, I'm excited to see
I
Carl's
think
date.
Should have done if Russell had anything about him would be not such a goody I'm the best Boy Scout ever, or whatever he is, wilderness explorer.
Yeah.
And all the balloons, he should have got a little pea shooter.
And just shot all his balloons mid-air.
Spat all his balloons down.
No, that is terrible. Well, yes, I do enjoy
it. It is terrible. Yes, it is.
It's a great adventure story. It's a great dynamic between this old man and, learning to live again from this little boy. Yes, but, overrated because of that great opening.
Toy Story 3.
Perfect. I cry every time I watch it. So good. It's a really good send off. Not really, but supposed to be sent off of, I guess, Andy.
It should have always been the
good send off to Andy.
Yeah,
essentially.
Yes. Milking everything for all it's worth. Pixar, Disney's fault, really, not Pixar. You can't blame Pixar at this point. It's Disney's fault. Toy Story 3, it being perfect according to Jeannine, there, is followed up by Cars 2.
Nope, I don't care.
No,
don't care at all. Don't barely remember it. Boring. Ooh, no.
Brave. Scotland.
Brave is fine. Merida's like cool princess, but not one that I'm always keen to revisit. I'm like, it's fine.
Scotland.
Meh.
Scotland. People from Scotland hate you now. Okay. Monsters University.
I really love this movie. I'm sorry. I think it's funny. I love, even though they don't really pay attention to the continuity of Monsters, Inc., which is annoying. But I love the college aspect. I think that's a really smart way to kind of see the earlier versions of these characters, the games that they have to play, the bond that they form, very much Revenge of the Nerds without all the pervy elements, and great kind of collegiate feeling music. It's a lot of fun. I really do. I love Monsters, Inc. more than most people. Or Monsters University more than most people.
Jeannine really loves Monsters University, and that's followed by Inside Out.
I have this complicated. I hated it for so long because, yes, I understand what it's trying to say. I understand how emotions work. I understand
it's so good.
I understand. I thought it was really smart in terms of depicting how, happiness is rolled into sadness. You have this happy memory, but then when you leave it and you leave those people in that memory, and it's touched by sadness now, because when you think of it, it's now sad. But it was just so hard to see Phyllis run amok, touch everything, and make this poor little girl have a mental breakdown. It was just very hard to watch that and was making me very angry. So, for the first, 20 minutes, I'm seeing sadness just touch everything and torture this poor little girl, and then I'm checked out because I'm like, no, leave Riley alone. So for a long time, I hated this movie because of that. But I had to kind of sit with it and realize that, yes, that is truly how emotions work, and sadness
Some
touches
people have
things.
mental breakdowns, Jeannine.
And people do have mental breakdowns. So, yes, I'm fully aware of what it's supposed to signify in terms of sadness touching everything. But it just was upsetting me that this poor girl was getting tortured. So I've since come around to Inside Out to be a beautiful way to illustrate emotions to young people.
Good. I'm glad
I hated it for a long time.
What about The Good Dinosaur? They're falling asleep. That's okay. That's fine, right? What about Finding Dory?
I thought it was a good follow-up. It kind of got a little all over the place, but seeing Dory's story and her finding her family and that whole thing, I think was really sweet. And I liked the new characters we met. So not bad. Not bad.
Okay. What about Cars 3? Absolutely not. No, just that face. Okay. Well, thankfully that's followed up by Coco.
This is my favorite Pixar movie of all time. Love Coco. It's beautiful. It's magical. It's incredibly emotional. I watched it I had my mom watch it for the first time on the Day of the Dead, and she was getting way into it and shouting at the TV and having so much fun with it. So, and my mom never watches movies like that. So.
We'll have to sing the song now.
Remember
me.
Yes. Though I have to travel far, remember me. Yes.
It's so good.
Yes, it's so good.
It is
It's my favorite
phenomenal.
Pixar movie.
Incredibles 2.
I thought it was a solid follow-up. It was good to see these characters again. I like that now it was Helen going out and doing the hero work and him having to stay at home with the kids and him being stressed and frustrated, but doing that for his lady and just good dynamic between the two of them and seeing her kind of get to be in the action. Um, Predictable villains for the most part, but overall a
Yeah.
solid follow-up.
Toy Story 4.
While I don't think this movie should exist, I actually really enjoyed it. I think the new characters they brought in were a lot of fun. Like Forky is so funny. The fact that he like
Deeply annoying.
he's so funny. The fact that he's
No,
just
he's not.
constantly, I'm garbage, trying to throw himself in the trash is just hilarious to me. I hated that all of our toys, if this is truly the final film, you really sidelined all of our toys to doing nothing, which was really such a bummer. But I loved kind of getting this, full circle because the movies alluded to this the whole time that this was Woody's purpose. So I like that they tied up his purpose with this final movie and made it make sense to who the character was showing us he was in all of these movies. So I liked
The
that.
issue is it's not the final movie, is it? Because there's going to be a 5th one.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I forgot about that. But
This
yes,
is the problem.
getting to see Woody just kind of embody and finally realize his purpose after him showing us that for all of these movies made a lot of sense. I didn't like how our old lovable characters were sidelined, but the new characters that they did bring in were fun. Combat Carl voiced by Carl Weathers was fun. Uh, Duke Kaboom, Keanu Reeves was great. I loved the creepy doll villain and her dummy dolls. Those were really creepy as well.
Yeah.
Ducky and Bunny were a lot of fun. So all the new characters that came in, I think, were a lot of fun and crafted a great story. I just didn't like how the rest of our beloved characters were sidelined.
Onward.
It was fine. It was fine. Like a
This
good
is
father-son
the era
story.
of
A
finally.
a nice emotional ending, but kind of forgettable for me.
This might be the era of fine
Yeah,
soul.
frustrating. I mean, there was one line in there that had me like when uh Tina Fey is in the black man's body.
Please explain that signal you just gave for audio only listeners.
Yeah, just a fist for my
Beating
people.
yourself.
A fist for my people. No, a moment that was just like, yes, I get it, black people, was when Tina Fey is in his body and he goes to take a shower and him as the cat says, don't forget to put on lotion. I was like, yes. That was very good. But other than that, the movie was just annoying.
So the one good line in Soul, okay.
Yes, and I watched it back to back with Wonder Woman 84, so that just made it even more frustrating because they came out on the same day, like Christmas time. So it was just
Luca.
It was cute. It was cute.
I never saw Luca. That was the fish one or the mermaid one, wasn't it?
Yes, but you like Ethany, so I'm surprised you haven't watched it.
I know, that's a good point, actually, yeah.
Yes, a good kind of discrimination story happening with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Turning Red.
Love Turning Red. The fact that it's like very much taken place in an era where I was a teenager, a young girl growing up and loving boy bands and giggling with your friends and all of that. Just the era, the vibe of it, the kind of quick pace of it, the anime vibes of it, just so fun. Absolutely love Turning Red.
And because we haven't seen Elemental yet, this is technically the last one. Lightyear.
Just the fact that it confused itself, and so it confused everyone else in terms of this is the movie that Andy watched to make him love this character. But then it's like, okay, well then how come none of these other characters got toys? Like
the obvious one that should be the toy.
Yeah.
Which is, what is his name?
The cat.
Socks, the cat.
Yes! So it just made no sense with the continuity of the character and all of that, and it was just really weird, confusing.
Buzz Lightyear's best friend, who he goes back to, I forget the name of now, the woman.
Yeah. Where is she? Where's her toy? Yeah. It just...
And why does Zurg get a toy when Zurg's not really Zurg?
And Zurg
That
is
annoyed
him,
me
and
as
it's this
well.
whole thing. Yeah, it was just confusing. So it was okay, but just the confusion it had with explaining itself and fitting into the continuity of Toy Story just confused things and muddled it a little too much. So
Well, there we go. Fun and games of Pixar
yeah.
with quick little thoughts on the entirety of Pixar's output over the last 28 years.
Oh goodness.
Yes, that's how
Yeah.
long it's been. That is how long it's been. There we go for this episode of Monday Madness. We hope you've enjoyed it. We certainly have. We always like to have fun here on this show, but it is not the only show we have on the It's Wonderful podcast feed. If you are listening to this, and it's not the only thing we have on this YouTube channel, if you are watching, click the subscribe button, ding the notification bell on this YouTube channel for all the fun stuff we have here, and of course subscribe to the It's a Wonderful podcast feed on all major podcast platforms, wherever you are listening to this. If you are not watching our faces move around today, we do also have Morgan Hasn't Seen and It's a Wonderful podcast on Wednesdays and Fridays for you to check out as well. Celebrating old movies on a Friday. Jeannine forces me to watch things I've never seen before every Wednesday. That is how those work. This show, of course, most Mondays here when we can. We try. We've been going just over a year, and this is episode 47. So there's been a few weeks where we've missed, clearly. Although we did have, I believe, a purposeful break over Christmas.
Yes.
So that wasn't necessarily an enforced break. But yes, I think that's all I have to say. There are things scrolling down at the bottom of the screen if you are watching for the other shows. If you would like to support us on Patreon or donate in any way, there are links in the description to go and do that, because we can't do what we do without that generous support. We love all our It's a Wonderful podcast patrons so very dearly.
We do.
You can, of course, just find us on social media as well, on Twitter at It's a Wonderful One. You can find me on Twitter, not at Dracula, but at the purple dot with 3 instead of the E in the, because, Jeannine.
3 is the magic number.
On Instagram and TikTok at the Purple Dawn. All your black horror loving stuff is where
you can find me Jeannine Devine _ on Twitter, Jeannine Devine on Instagram and TikTok. If you want to get any merch for any of our shows, just check the scrolling bar or the description for the link, or you can search It's a Wonderful Podcast on teespring.com. We have some really fun designs, some fun Stranger Things designs, some logos for all of our shows, so please check it out. And if you want to purchase any of my art in print form, you can find that at my Big Cartel shop, g9design.bigcartel.com.
Well, there we go. Jeannine, could you please do, if you can, an impression of the best black horror character ever?
I cannot. I know, that's hard. I cannot do a Tony Todd.
Yes, you can.
I cannot do that voice.
Boom, the boom.
3, 2, 1.
It was a good attempt.
I tried so low.
Bye.